Well, welcome to the premiere episode of Selling During Crisis. I'm so excited to bring this to you because, we've just gone through so much during this year. And let me just tell you really quickly kind of the premise of what I'm doing with this podcast. So in the summertime, if you guys follow me, you know that we did the Leading During Crisis podcast where I interviewed people that I sell to, a lot of the buyers that I deal with in IT. And we were trying to get an idea of what those guys were going through and those girls were going through during those times when they were suffering with, how to lead their teams and their companies during this crisis. So, as time progressed and time passed, I got a lot of messages from people that were in my field that were, in different fields, but they were selling and they were asking, hey, what are you doing to leverage LinkedIn and videos? And can you give me some tips and tricks? So with a lot of things happening, right before the holidays, I figured, you know what? Why don't I start this new podcast, a spinoff called Selling During Crisis? So that's what this is, because as you guys know, there's a lot riding on your performance, from the financial well-being of your family to the success of your company. You've got a lot of people depending on you to meet your quota. So what happens when you don't? How do you deal with the stress of letting yourself and all those people down? And so I figured, why don't I bring people together, leverage my network, who can give you those tips and tricks to help you guys out. So today on the premiere episode, I'm going to have one of the people that trained me when I was a baby rep, very green in the business. And I'm so excited to have him on. His name is Jeff Goldberg. So let me tell you a little bit about Jeff and then I'll bring him in. Jeff Goldberg is the president, master sales coach, and lead sales trainer at Jeff Goldberg and Associates, where they're dedicated to helping individuals and organizations attain measurable and sustainable sales increases. He's an award-winning sales professional with over 4 decades of sales. So I wouldn't bring in anybody else to lead this show that wouldn't have any credibility. Sales management, training, and coaching experience. Jeff has had the opportunity to teach, coach, mentor, and speak internationally in front of tens of thousands of sales professionals, ranging from financial, successful veterans to the most junior new hires, myself, in a diverse array of industries. Jeff delivers powerful, high-energy programs and speeches that draw on his years of experience as a performer in the theater and stand-up comedy. So you're going to hear Jeff, I know him. He's going to throw in some jokes here and there. So get ready for a fun one. He's relentlessly energetic and results-driven. He injects humor, passion, and a strong dose of reality into all of his programs. He's delivered training for clients such as State Farm, Aramark, Siemens, Newsday, Cisco, Citibank, and Cablevision. That's where I met Jeff. And others representing nearly every commercial and industrial category. So I'm super excited to bring in Jeff. So let's bring him in right now. Jeff, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Jonathan. Thanks so much for having me. And boy, oh boy, do I sound impressive from that introduction.
Listen, you know what? When I came up with this idea, and I told you this when we were setting this up, when I came up with this idea, I said, man, I need to fill in certain gaps. And I reached out to you and I said, I pray that Jeff would say yes, because I know you're busy. And we haven't seen each other. I moved in to Florida 5 years ago, but before that, we hadn't seen each other in a couple of years. But we connected on social media and we've been following each other. And so it's like, if I can get Jeff to do this, boy, this would make sense. So I'm super, super excited to have you on here. So thank you for doing that, first of all. Second of all, let me tell you, even though I'm in Orlando, Florida, it's cold today. So you see, I got my sweaters on. This is as cold as it gets. But I don't want to show you below. I got my shorts and my slippers on because that's how we do it in Florida. This is how we do cold days. So I just want to let you know how that works.
Fantastic. I'll remember that as I was walking I can't do it in reverse, but I was walking my dog this morning. It was 32 degrees out. Thank you.
Oh, gosh. Oh, man. Well, listen, there's pain in that temperature. And where there's also pain is with these salespeople that, even myself, you're doing this for me today, Jeff, and I need to hear what you got to, share. Because, at the end of the day, we talk about sales, right? Selling. And I think that there's this negative connotation sometimes with salespeople. All these salespeople, they're just too aggressive and they're just trying to hit quota, and they're, they don't understand the buyer's persona and the mentality, and I'll call you when I need you type of thing. And so we get this bad rap. And sales is a tough job, even in the best of times. Drop a global pandemic in the middle of it, and you got a chaotic mess. So as a sales trainer and a coach, I wanted to talk to you. The first thing about it is, now we're however many months in, I lost track, 10, 11, 12 months. And I don't know how many months we're into this thing already. Now we have this thing, the term called COVID fatigue, right? So as we're out there trying to still work remote, trying to engage, How do we keep the energy high and prevent against this COVID fatigue? What do you think?
I think one of the things that salespeople need to keep in mind is that, yes, COVID fatigue is real, and people are certainly tired of it. But there's a flip side to that. And one of the things I always do is I always look for where's the opportunity. And I think the opportunity for salespeople is that part of COVID fatigue is that people are mostly still working remotely. Some companies have gone back to working on site, but most people are still working from home. And if we as salespeople can realize that that's a lonely place for most people, like I've been working from my home for a long, long time, but I think most people prefer to be in an atmosphere with a lot of others where they can interact and have socialization. So if we remember that a lot of people are missing that, it actually should enable us to reach out to people in a way where they might not have been receptive before, by simply doing the most basic of things, which is picking up the phone and cold calling. Contacting people and having those conversations that most people miss on a regular basis. So I think it really presents an opportunity for us if we come from the right place. And I want to back up to something you said in your introduction, which is salespeople have a bad reputation and they don't understand the buyer persona. That boils down to really one thing. We have to stop having commission breath. Now, I've been in the same situation as I'm sure many of the people who will be watching this are in right now, which is I got to pay the rent, or I got to pay the mortgage, or I got to fill in the blank with whatever they have to pay. And if I don't close a deal, I'm going to be in some serious trouble. I've been there, my friends. In almost 48 years of selling, I've been there more than once. But nobody cares about what you have to do. Nobody cares about your bills, or nobody cares about the fact that I've got 3 kids who are all in college right now. My prospects and my customers couldn't care less about that. What they care about is themselves. So as salespeople, we better keep in mind that our job is not really to convince or to persuade or to talk anybody into anything, that our job is to serve. I really like the Zig Ziglar quote, which was, stop selling and start helping. And that's where I come from when I'm selling and when I'm training or coaching salespeople. It's you come from deep inside your gut. You can't see my very ample gut right now, but I'm pointing to my belly. And your come from should always be, how can I best help you? Because when you help enough people get what they want, you're going to get what you want as a salesperson, which is to get paid. But really, it's that come from of, I'm here to serve. That's where I come from.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you said that. I'm going to pat myself on the back because in the promotion leading up to this episode, if you saw, I wrote to sell is to serve. So I know we didn't plan that, right? It's just I'm so happy that you said that, because the purpose of this episode of this entire podcast is to serve the salespeople who are going through it, whether they're in New York or Florida or wherever, whoever's watching this. Let's give them some tips and tricks. So you hit on something there. I love it. So you hit on something there.
Sorry to interrupt, but I've done the same thing, Jonathan. And I have a Facebook group for salespeople called the Sales Pro Network. And I formed that simply to elevate the profession of sales and to serve the sales community. Now, we don't have 1 million members yet. We've got somewhere about 450 or something like that. But it's salespeople who can get together, share their successes, share their challenges, maybe cry on each other's shoulders, ask for help. And there are trainers and coaches just like me, including my competitors in there, who are happy to help. And as you know, every Friday I do a live interview just like this one. And it's all designed to serve. So I love where you're coming from with this.
Sweet. Awesome stuff. And when we end this, I want to send out the link to your website and send out the link to that Facebook group. So that way we can get some more people on that platform. But, we talk about, let's dig in now a little bit into trying to the mechanics of having to sell in this digital world. So, we're talking about establishing some rapport, right? Genuine rapport with our buyers, right? And how can we do that with a total stranger, especially when we normally only have, 6 seconds to make an impression? And now we have to do that digitally. How do we, what are some of the best practices, techniques that you've seen to help engage and establish that rapport quickly?
Yeah, well, while it's certainly true that people make a snap judgment, and they are making a judgment about us when they see us in those first 6 seconds, but things happen before that these days. So before we hop on a Zoom call, or if we're fortunate enough to and willing to take a face-to-face meeting, let's make sure that our social media profile is good. That we're, look, if you like the president or don't like the president, and people are pretty extreme on both sides about it, Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn are probably not the best places to be expressing those emotions, at least not strongly, if you want to do business with people. because as we both know, the country is divided. So let's say I love President Trump and I've got a prospect who hates President Trump. And all day long, I'm on Facebook or LinkedIn going, President Trump is the greatest in the world. And I can't believe you idiot Democrats, blah, 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 blah. Well, before I even get an appointment with you, if I'm fortunate enough to get that appointment, you've already formed an opinion about me. So I think people should be certainly cautious about where they're expressing their personal opinions about politics. Certainly, we all know that politics, sex, religion, these are things that you typically don't talk about with your prospects. So making sure that you're putting out the right persona to the world, and that's what social media does, and it doesn't go away. Make sure you're putting out the way you want people to really see you as a professional, as somebody who truly does want to serve. I have my personal opinions about the president. I don't share them with my prospects and my clients. And I've given up sharing them on Facebook, which I used to do, because it wasn't serving anything except making me feel better about my point of view. So that's one thing. The second thing is when you actually do hop on a call, which these days pretty much is Zoom or FaceTime or whatever other video conference you're using, conference service, you still want to do the same things that you would do in person. You don't want to shortcut the process. And to me, the best way to establish rapport with anybody is to get them to talk about their favorite subject. Now, the good news is, as you know, Jonathan, everybody has the same favorite subject, and their same favorite subject is themselves. It's always me. So my goal, when I'm trying to establish rapport with somebody and lay that foundation down that I can then build on in every interaction, I'm going to ask them questions about their favorite subject, which is themselves. And the way I do it is, let's say you were a vice president of sales at a large organization, or you're a salesperson that's reaching out to me for coaching. I'm going to start with, let's say you're the VP of sales. I'm going to start with this. Hey, Jonathan, I'm just curious about something. Before we get started here, how'd you get to be the vice president of sales here at XYZ company? Now, as you know, Jonathan, I'm just curious. That's what I call a softener. And a softener is a word or a phrase that you put before a question, which softens the question and makes it more conversational. So I'm just curious, before we get started, when I say before we get started, it's kind of like the sales call hasn't even begun yet. We're just two people trying to get to know each other. And then I'm asking you about your favorite subject. How'd you get to be, and then you fill in the blank with whatever the person's title is. And then you have to do the most difficult thing for any salesperson to do, which is shut up. Stop talking. You've asked a question, and what you've asked is to have them tell you about their favorite subject. So stop talking and let them do it. And while they're doing that, you only want to be doing a couple of things. One is you want to be looking them in the eye, not like a stalker stare where you don't blink, but you want to be looking them in the eye so that they see that you're paying attention to them. And it's crucial when you're using a video conference service like StreamYard, like Zoom, that you know where your eyes should be. My camera happens to be above my monitor, so I have to look directly into it. Others, you have to look a little bit down. But if you're looking in the wrong place, it doesn't look like you're looking people in the eye. So you want to look them in the eye. As they're talking, you also want to do this. See, that subtle psychological nod. It's not this one that means, yes, I agree with everything you're saying. But here's what that subtle psychological nod says. Yes, I'm listening. Please talk more. And what I'm trying to do is encourage them to talk as long as they possibly can about their favorite subject themselves. And I'm going to make sounds and ask things like, really? No kidding. Why'd you do that? How'd that work out? Because what I want to do is encourage them to talk as long as they possibly can about their favorite subject themselves. And unconsciously or subconsciously, what happens is your prospect starts thinking, this Jeff's not the typical salesperson, because the typical salesperson walks in and goes, thank you so much for your time. Let me tell you why Jeff Goldberg and Associates is the greatest coaching firm in the world, or the greatest training firm in the world. But Jeff didn't do that. Unconsciously, they start to like you. And that's what you're looking for. The other thing that you've done is you've made them feel special. And Dale Carnegie said it's better to be interested than interesting. And what I'm always trying to do is make my prospect feel special, because most of us don't feel special most of the time. And when, as a salesperson, I can make you feel special, even for a few moments, you start to think kindly about me. So that's what I would be doing, John.
Interesting take. And so you said a lot there. I want to unpack a couple things, because we've established rapport at that point. You've done some professional prospecting to get to that meeting. So, I really appreciate what you're saying, because I think there's a lot of tips and tricks there that you even share in your training. I know that's been, stuff that we've talked about back in, gosh, I want to say, what was it, 2009 or something when we met. That's some of it's the techniques work, right? It's almost like the principles of sales are the principles of sales before you and I were born, and they'll be the principles long after you and I are gone, right? So we've established that rapport. We've done that professional prospecting, but talk to me about, some common mistakes. So I've heard some mixed messages about small talk in the beginning, right? Once let's assume you've established a rapport and you've already booked the meeting, and now you're there, you're starting the meeting. Do you do like small talk? How's it going? How's the weather? What do you think about small talk? And do you think that comes off being too salesy?
Yeah. So the establishing rapport is going to happen at that first meeting. If I prospected you over the phone or in any other way, I'm not going to be asking you to tell me about yourself via email or a text or anything else, or even via phone if that's how I've contacted you. That's when we actually get on a meeting, whether it's face-to-face or via video conference. That's when I'm going to ask that question. So that would be my small talk. Now, here's the thing. If all you've got is, how about those Mets, or nice weather we're having, or I like the change of seasons, or it's almost New Year's, whatever you're going to say, if that's all you've got, use that, because that's better than, hi, let me tell you about our great stuff. It's what the prospect wants, by the way. The prospect wants you to get right to the point. And you, not you, Jonathan, the typical salesperson wants to get right to the point too, because the quicker we get to the point, the happier we both are, because that means we're saving time. I'm not wasting time establishing rapport. But the thing is, even though I would rather save the time too, it's just not what works. And I'm committed to doing what works. So I'm willing to pay the price and take that extra 4 to 7 minutes, which is what I typically get from my prospects, of them talking about themselves, even though that's 4 to 7 minutes that I wish I had back and that they wish they had back. It's just what works best. And I'm always committed to what's working best. I don't care if I'm right. In fact, I often, when I'm standing in front of a large audience and about to deliver a program, I often start with, look, if you're doing something that goes against what I suggest to you today and it's working really well, don't listen to a word I say, because I have no commitment to being right. My commitment is to help you make more money. There's one other thing I wanted to mention real quickly about that whole establishing rapport thing, and it's especially important these days when most people are using video conference. Make sure your setup is good. Make sure your room looks as good as it possibly can. You have a great background. Mine doesn't look so terrific. Normally, I like to use something like Zoom. I can use a virtual background. But even where it's not optimal, like mine's not, I still have lighting that's appropriate. You want to make sure your face is lit properly, because if it looks dark, people think they can't see you and they may not trust you. Make sure your sound is good. Invest in a good camera. You can get a camera for $30, but the good ones cost a bit more, but you look better. So make sure that you're doing everything you possibly can to establish that rapport. And it's not just what you say, it's how you appear. It's the same thing in person. When you walk, like you said it, 6 seconds, boom. In the old days when we actually put on suits and ties as gentlemen, we walked in, as we're walking in the door, possibly even walking out of our car from the parking lot, people are looking out the window, they're judging us immediately. Right. So make sure that you're doing everything you can, including good lighting, good sound, and good video.
Awesome stuff, Jeff. And here's, what I want to do now, because we kind of talked about getting the meeting. I want to talk to you about now some new techniques in this selling in this digital world. And then I want to talk a little bit about some of the trainings that you've put out there and a couple other items. Before we get into that, though, let me just share with you some great feedback so far. Ralph Papa, who's on, he says, great info, Jeff. Ralph's a great guy that I know. And Vincent Butera, thanks. That is great info, Jeff. Vincent works in Atlanta, Georgia for Crown Castle, and I know he's a great guy there. So awesome stuff. So just some good feedback we're getting so far right off the bat. I want to talk to you, though, about, let's talk to you about now that, we mentioned that we're in this for a while. And I know that we had to, I'll speak about myself. When this whole thing changed and we couldn't put the suits on anymore and meet face to face, I had to reinvent myself. And the way I reinvented myself was using video to communicate, because you couldn't see me, right? I wanted to put a face to the name. So I started using, you touched on a little bit of it, some, video prospecting and different techniques like that. But I know, and I've seen you post this up on your social media. People aren't comfortable with using video. They may think that they look weird, or they feel uncomfortable with how they're looking. They don't know what to say, and then how do I say it, and what's my how is this going to even work? And screw it, I'm not even going to do this thing anymore. So people shy away from using video right now to prospect. And I think it's important. I mean, you and I both know it's not the magic bullet. There's no such thing. Because if we had the magic bullet, you and I would be hanging out in Tahiti right now. We wouldn't be, having this podcast. But the point is, it's just another tool in your arsenal. But what do you say to the salesperson who is uncomfortable with video selling? Or I'm going to throw this caveat in there. What about the sales managers who think that that's just a fad?
Yeah. So before I get to that, I want to say that I was laughing while you were talking, because I just got off a call with my coach. So as a coach, I have a coach, not a sales coach. I don't need a sales coach, but she's what she calls a transformational coach. She helps you be the best version of yourself. And I was having almost this exact conversation with her about what if I don't look good enough or something like that. And the reason that came up is I recently took a picture, a screenshot of me being interviewed on another show recently, and I posted the picture on Facebook. And I got 79. She pointed out to me that I got 79 responses, and it was all so handsome, so good looking, so blah, blah, blah. It was all this wonderful feedback. And at the time, I was reveling in it. It's lovely when people say nice things to you, but there was a part of me that felt like a phony. And it took me about 5 days of staring at what I consider to be the best picture of me ever taken, staring at this picture and trying to figure out why I didn't feel comfortable about it. And I realized what it was. It's that the lighting in the picture was perfect, and it's slightly blurred, I guess probably because I was taking a screenshot off of a video. So it comes out slightly blurred, and it didn't really look like me to me. It looked like the best possible. It looked like I was a model who looks kind of plain all the time, but with the right makeup and the right photography, they all look great. And so it didn't really feel authentic to me. It felt like that's not really me. I can't tell you how many people said you're handsome. I don't think of myself that way. I think I'm average at best. But here's the point that I want to make to what you just said and what she said to me. She goes, stop fighting it. If you don't think you're the handsomest guy in the world, that's okay. But if a bunch of other people did, why would you want to make them wrong? Why would you want to prove yourself right to make them wrong? Because I actually thought about posting, hey, thanks for all the kind words, but you guys are wrong. I'm not a handsome guy. I'm okay. So if you're not comfortable with your looks, get over it. I'm an average guy. Jonathan, you're a handsome guy, but I'm an average guy, and I use video all the time. And I think that any sales manager or salesperson that's not using video is truly missing the boat. Ask most experts. Video rules. Now, if you're using LinkedIn and posting a lot of content, I think sometimes you should use video, sometimes you should just use text, and sometimes you should use pictures or memes. But video, people relate to it. And the other great thing about using video for prospecting, like a service like Vidyard, is not everybody's doing that yet. So when you get an email and it's got a quick video and it's personalized, it says, hey, Jonathan, I'm Jeff Goldberg. I'm a sales coach, and I'm reaching out to you because I saw that you manage a bunch of people, and I'm really fascinated by your company and your industry. I wonder if we could have a brief conversation about how coaching might help some of your people. Well, when you personalize it like that, it does what I was talking about before. It makes the recipient feel special. It shows that you took the time to actually think about them and you made it personal to them. It's like when you reach out to somebody on LinkedIn to connect with them and you send the standard invitation, you just click send and it automatically invites them. They know it's the standard invitation. But when you go to somebody's profile and you find something in there that you can comment on, I'll give you an example. The other day I was reaching out to a salesperson as a potential coaching client. Now, I never ever get on and say, hey, I'd love you as my coaching client. But I noticed in this guy's profile, he'd been with the same company for the last 17 years, which is astounding these days. And he'd worked himself up from sales support to a senior account executive. So in my LinkedIn reach out to him, my invitation to him, I said, wow, 17 years at the same company. That's unusual these days. And I see you worked yourself up from the bottom up to being a senior account executive. Very impressive. Let's connect. Well, that means a lot more to people. So I think when somebody takes the time to customize a video and uses that for prospecting, I think they're doing the smart thing. And faddish, maybe it is a fad. I don't know. But if it is, I'm interested in what's coming next. And until then, I want to use what's working, and video does seem to be working well now.
Love it. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I'm one of those people that I went all in on LinkedIn. I went all in on using video to communicate. Vidyard was the platform that I discovered back in the summertime in a training with the company that I was with, Crown Castle. And, you know, I just took to that like a moth to a flame, because I said, wow, this is a great way for me to get myself out there visually. And like you said, a lot of people are not using it yet. The key word there, guys, if you're watching, was yet. Because it's going to be the new way that people start doing things, especially because once this thing is over with and we get the vaccine and we, you know, move back to, you know, face to face, there's still going to be those times where, you know, if you can send out that personal video message, man, it'll make such a huge difference. So I really feel that if there's a way that we can get salespeople to just get over that hump, to start using it a little bit more often, well, it'd be not, I wouldn't want to say like it's the magic bullet, but it'd be a game changer for sure, I believe. So
it's not a magic bullet. And the thing that I would caution people to do, and that I coach my coaching clients to do, is I like a blended approach to prospecting.
Right.
Because there's no one thing that works every time. Most studies these days say it takes somewhere between 7 and 12 attempts to contact somebody until they'll actually connect with you. And be willing to have a conversation. So maybe you send a video and you send an email after that. And maybe you make a phone call. Maybe there's a piece of direct mail. And maybe it's a combination of the 4 or 5 different things at various times. And what I always suggest is experiment. Try, okay, I'm sending a video via email first, and then I'm going to make a phone call, and then I'm going to send a piece of direct mail. Let's track, measure and track how that works. And then let's try something different and see how that works. You always want to be testing and measuring, because you want to be doing what's getting you the best result. Just because video feels good to you and me doesn't mean it's necessarily getting you the best result. Right. It's easy, it's fun, and it's engaging. And I believe it's working, but really you got to test and measure. And rather than going on gut instinct or anecdotal evidence, I want to know the real numbers. And I'll give you a quick example. When I met my previous boss, before I opened up my own consultancy 16 years ago, I worked for a very famous sales training company, and he taught me the value of metrics. And before I had met this gentleman, if you had asked me, hey, Jeff, how many phone calls does it take you to get an appointment with one person? I would have told you, without thinking about it, I would have told you, Jonathan, 100. 100 dials equals one appointment for me. Now, would I have told you that because it was true? No, not because it was true. It wasn't true. Would I have told you that because it was right? No, it wasn't right. I would have told you that because that's what it felt like to me, because I hate cold calling. I love teaching it. I believe it works. I train people to do it regularly. I just hate doing it myself. So because I despise it so much, it felt like it takes me 100 dials to make one stinking appointment. Now, here's the problem with that. If it feels like it takes me 100 dials to make one measly appointment, I might as well go stand on the Long Island Expressway with a big sign that says sales training or sales coaching here and wait for cars to pull over, because I'm just as likely to run into people if it really takes 100 dials to get an appointment. It turns out that when I started measuring it, it wasn't anywhere near that. And I was actually pretty darn effective at getting appointments over the phone. So whatever your audience is going to do, whether it's video or anything else, test and measure, because you want to make sure that what you're doing is working. And then whatever you find is working well, do more of that and do less of all the other stuff.
Jeff, I got to tell you, you're hitting home runs, like not even singles and doubles, just straight home runs out the park, brother. Let me show you some of the stuff. We're getting some great feedback here. Nick says, great feedback on using video and embracing the unique benefits it can unlock for everyone. I mean, it's just great. And here's another one from Hatch. Great stuff. And he writes, impression on, I think, management. So that's going to give me a segue. And by the way, we have somebody's watching, Ralph, who made a comment earlier. He has a great question that I want to bring up in a second here. But I wanted to dovetail into management really quickly, right? Because we talked about, you made some comments there, and we talked about, if people don't believe in the, if it's too salesy, or if it's too, if it's a fad or things like that. I saw that you posted an article on LinkedIn, and I got to ask you about this, because I think it's an interesting comment that you made, and I'm going to read it. So it says, it may not be your salespeople, the high cost of sales managers who suck. Right? Wow, what a statement, right? So talk to me about what made you write that article, and what is the cost to a company that has sales managers who suck? I want to know what was that all about?
Well, first of all, I love the word suck. It's so expressive. I co-authored a book called Leverage Your Laziness, and my co-author and I use the word suck constantly. It's just so descriptive. The thought behind the high cost of sales managers that suck is this. Most salespeople, other than the people that are watching this, of course, are not terrific at their jobs. They're okay. They do a decent job. Sometimes they hit their quota, maybe once or twice a year, but most of the time they don't. And it's because they don't really invest in themselves. It's not that they're not talented. It's not that they don't have the capability or the potential. It's just that most salespeople don't attend a seminar at all. They don't go to a workshop. They don't look on YouTube for videos. There's a million videos from guys just like me. A lot of bad content, but some really good free content out there. They don't read a book. I mentioned to you earlier that you're going to be hopefully interviewing for a future podcast the guy who wrote the #1 best-selling sales book of last year, The Transparency Sale. Brilliant book. Most salespeople don't do that because they're okay at their jobs at best. And that's not a knock against salespeople. It's just the fact that good for me, by the way, because I help people make more money in sales. So here's my thinking. The only person who does not need a strong sales manager, and I don't mean screaming sales manager, I mean an effective leader who knows how to help people do their jobs better. The only person who doesn't need that is a superstar. And sadly, not for me, because that's the business I'm in, helping people become superstars, but sadly, most salespeople are not superstars. So if you're in a sales organization and you've got a sales manager who sucks at their job, you're pretty much screwed because you don't have anybody to help you. And we all need some outside help. For example, I know you know the term pipeline management. Well, part of pipeline management is having your pipeline reviewed typically by your sales manager. It's one of the things I do with my coaching clients. But your sales manager typically reviews your pipeline with you. And the reason that's so important is your sales manager can think outside your box. If I was reviewing your pipeline right now, Jonathan, I said, tell me about prospect A, I would ask you certain questions that would tell me where you're at in the sales process. And the most important question I would ask you is, what are you going to do next and when? And you would tell me, well, here's my plan for the next meeting or the next phone call, the next whatever it is. And I would either say, wow, brilliant, that's exactly what I would do. Or because I'm smarter, more experienced, or simply because I have a different perspective than you do, a different box that I live in, I could give you advice on how you can move your deal forward that you wouldn't think of on your own. There's that phrase that everybody uses that I like the sound of, I just don't believe in it. It's called think outside the box. Well, I like the thought of that, but there are very few out of the box thinkers. Steve Jobs was an out of the box thinker. Most people are not out of the box thinkers because we live in a box of our skills and our experience and our education and our training. Everything that brought me up to this 65 years of moment right now, that's the box I live in. But you, if I told you about the deals I'm working on right now, and I told you what I was going to do next, you could look outside my box for me. Even though I'm a professional sales trainer and sales coach, you could probably give me ideas on how to close business that I hadn't thought of. Well, that's what an effective sales manager should be doing. And here's the other challenge. Most sales managers, and I've met lots and lots, I've been a sales manager as an employee and on an outsourced basis, and I've worked with lots and lots of sales managers, training them how to be better leaders. Most sales managers are salespeople that got promoted. Let's say you're my star salesperson. I'm going to come to you at some point and go, hey, Jonathan, you know what? I've paid you everything I can pay you. You've won every contest. You go to President's Club every year. I don't know how else to reward you, but I've got this great idea. I'm going to make you a sales manager. And to the Jonathan in this example, that sounds terrific because it sounds like you're going to work less hard and you're going to make more money, except the opposite's true. You're going to work way harder than you're working as a sales rep if you're doing your job properly. And you're certainly going to make less money, at least than your top reps are. But here's the real problem. The real problem is you sit down behind your sales manager desk that first day and you go, holy crap, what do I do now? Because the company does not train you. And sales management are two completely different things. My definition of selling is not about convincing or persuading or talking people into things. It's simply a conversation or a series of conversations leading to help the other person choose to do business with you. Sales management, on the other hand, is about convincing, persuading, and talking people into things, mostly talking them into things that they don't want to do, like consistently prospecting every single day. So if you're a sales manager who's been promoted but never got trained and didn't invest in your own training, you're going to stumble, and the people under you are going to stumble too because they need you to be an effective leader. The other challenge is that you're probably now managing the people that you were friends with yesterday, that you were doing the same job as them yesterday, and now they're going to resent you because you've got a loftier position, and it's not a popularity contest. This is a big problem that I see with a lot of managers. They want to be loved and they want to be liked. Don't get me wrong. I want to be loved and liked too. And I often equate it to raising children. I've got 3 kids. I am blessed that I've got 3 terrific kids. I'm blessed that they love me. I'm blessed that they like me. And I'm blessed in many ways. But here's the thing. It never really mattered to me if my kids loved me or liked me. What mattered to me is that they respected me and that I was able to help them become magnificent human beings, because that's what I saw as my job as a father. It's the same thing as a sales manager. My job isn't to have you love me or like me. And I think most of the people that have ever worked for me or currently work for me would tell you that they like me. But the reason that they should like me is because I help them make more money, not because I'm fun and a good guy and all that. I'm a great cheerleader and all that stuff. And I don't love having the difficult conversations, although I'm willing to. So it's a huge cost to any organization that has sales managers that suck, because they're the linchpin of the organization. In my not so humble opinion, when it comes to this, Jonathan, the sales manager, the sales manager, the person who the salespeople report to directly on a daily basis, it's the most important person in the organization. And sadly, most of them suck.
Wow. Jeff, I mean, you're hitting the mark here, because we're talking about not only salespeople, but we're also wanting to help those sales managers hit their quota as well. So the fact that you're saying that you don't even realize, I just wanted to let you go. Like you said, shut up earlier. I just wanted to shut up and let you go on that, because you were touching on so many great things. And it got me thinking as you were speaking, it got me thinking about some of the sales professionals in my life that I look to now as mentors. One of the guys that I can think of when I first moved to Florida, one of my first managers was a gentleman by the name of Gabby Nieto, who he removed hurdles out of my way. He helped me succeed, especially coming in here, having no idea the landscape of Orlando, Florida, not having any accounts, right? Not having any of the big guys, at least. I had to go out and hunt, 100% hunting. And it was like he helped me remove hurdles. And to this day now, Gabby, I consider a mentor now in my life, not only professionally, but also personally. And so I look at him, when you start saying those things, as a person who is one of those sales managers who don't suck, who just remove those hurdles. He did a lot of those things. And that's why I look to him as a mentor now. But then, obviously we all have those other people in our lives. And it's just kind of, it's interesting that you touch on that. And, one of the things I would think about as you were speaking about, your first day as a sales manager, and you're sitting behind the desk and you're like, holy crap, what do I do now? In your sales coaching, you talk a lot about time management, right? And prioritizing your time. I've even seen on some of your other podcasts and some of the other interviews you've done, when you talk about putting everything on your calendar, like even the fact that you meditate, like you put that on your calendar, right? So why is that important? And why should salespeople protect their time?
Yeah, this is a crucial concept. Before I move on to that, I just want to back up for a second and say, I don't want to get a bunch of letters from salespeople because I said most salespeople suck, or sales managers because I said most of them suck. I know lots and lots of terrific salespeople who are excellent at their jobs. And I've met tons of great salesmen. Look, where you and I first met at Cablevision, there were tons of great sales managers there. It's just my experience that most of them are not terrific. So let's talk about time management. This is a crucial concept. When I do large scale trainings with groups of people, I'll usually start out with some kind of an icebreaker after I introduce myself. And one of them is asking the people to go around the room and tell me what their biggest challenge is. 50% of every audience, 50% of every single audience anywhere in the world that I've asked this question has always said, time management is my biggest challenge. So calendarization is the method that I've come up with. And I know that's not a real world, because every time I type it into a document, the paperclip shows up, from Bill Gates, and says, that's not a real world. But it simply means everything goes on your calendar. Everything. The example that you've seen, meditate, walk the dog, wake up, eat breakfast, shower. Now, I don't need to remember to wake up, and I don't need to remember to walk the dog, and I don't need to remember to eat breakfast or take a shower. Although some days, there's certainly been days where it's been 5 o'clock because I sat down at 6 or 7 in the morning and said, I'll just check email, then I'll jump in the shower. And then, you get involved and it's 5 o'clock. What's that smell? Oh, it's me. The things that are on your calendar have a far greater likelihood of getting done than things that are just in your mind or even on a to-do list. Now, I used to be huge with to-do lists, mainly because I'm kind of anal and I love crossing things off. I like putting things on the list, but more importantly, I like getting stuff done. But I found that once I started using calendarization, putting everything on my calendar, I was way more efficient and effective with my time. There are a couple of things that are important about calendarization to know. The first one is everything goes on your calendar. Everything, whatever you have to do, it needs to be on your calendar, including building in little times for breaks, lunch, things like that, because you actually work better and more efficiently and effectively when you build small breaks into your day than if you just try to work all day without taking any breaks. It's been proven scientifically. You need to put in travel time. Like I live on Long Island. If I was going into Manhattan for an appointment, if I didn't put in the travel time of an hour that it would take to get there, I think I've now got an extra hour. So I want to be really specific about where my time has to go. I also want to put the right amount of time for each task on my calendar. And I'll give you an example. I happen to use Google Calendar just because I like it. And I have it set up. You can either have it set up so that when you put in a new task or an event, that it'll either default to 30 minutes or an hour. I have mine set to an hour because most of my coaching sessions take an hour, training sessions are an hour and 90 minutes, but most things are closer to an hour. So as anytime I enter a new event on my calendar, it defaults to an hour. But I'll give you an example of me writing a proposal. If I'm going to write a proposal, let's say you were a prospect and we had a first meeting, and between now and the next meeting, I've got to write a proposal. Well, I got to put it on my calendar to make sure it gets done. When I put that on my calendar, it's going to default to 1 hour. But here's the thing, Jonathan. It only takes me 20 minutes to write a proposal. Now, by the way, that's not the right amount of time. That's just what it takes me. For some people, it takes 2 hours. Some people take days to write their proposals because they're long and complicated. Mine simply takes 20 minutes because I've written hundreds, maybe thousands of them. And it's really cutting and pasting from other ones and putting them into a new document, making sure that the last company's name is not on there anymore. So it takes 20 minutes. The game you play with yourself is, if I get to the end of the 20 minutes, so I'm going to move that hour appointment to make it just 20 minutes. The game you play with yourself is if you get to the end of the 20 minutes for me, and I have not finished that proposal for whatever reason, I now need to move on to the next thing on my calendar, and I owe myself the time at the very end of the day when everything else has been finished to now finish that proposal. And my experience was that it didn't take too many times of getting to 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night and going, okay, I'm all done. Oh no, I got to go back and finish that proposal because I wasn't focused enough during the day. Maybe I took a call that I didn't really need to take, or maybe I decided, oh, let me take a look at what's going on Facebook and see what people are saying there, or whatever it is. I wasn't focused enough and I wasn't working with enough velocity, so I didn't get it done. And I found that it didn't take too many times of having to pay myself back to the time I wasn't focused enough that I started making sure that when I'm working during the day on each task, on each thing, I'm working with both focus and velocity. And those are words I use with my coaching clients all the time. Focus and velocity. Now, I'd like to take just a second to explain the two. They're exactly what they sound like. Focus means focusing on one thing at any given time. It's been proven scientifically in the laboratory, Jonathan, that your brain can only focus on one thing at any given nanosecond. And when you try to focus on two things at once, the famous multitasking, most people think they're great multitaskers. I'm here to tell you, you are not. You think you're a great multitasker, you aren't. When you try to do two things at once, both things are going to suffer. You may get them done, but not as well as if you focused on one thing at a time. So my coaching is focus on one task at any given time and do it with velocity. And that's exactly what it sounds like too. Do it with all speed. I want you to work as fast as you possibly can on each task that you've set for yourself without being careless. If you've ever done woodworking or carpentry, there's an old saying, measure twice, cut once. And the reason for that is you don't want to waste a piece of wood because you measured incorrectly. Something was supposed to be 14 inches. You cut it to 12. Oops, just blew that piece of wood. I got to do another one. So I want salespeople, no matter what they're working on, to work as fast as they possibly can without actually cutting off their fingers. Focus, velocity, calendarization.
Wow. Amazing. Great stuff, Jeff. And, in terms of time management, I just want to ask you really briefly, because this is now, we just hit the 44-minute mark. Out of respect for your time, I just want to make sure that we can go a little further, because we got we're getting great feedback from the audience. We even got a question. So I wanted to make sure that we're still good on time with you. I don't want to.
Absolutely, sir.
So let me show you a question that we have from Ralph. I mentioned it earlier that he asked this. Ralph asked, what technique do you use when a hot lead that you have been talking to for months goes cold and isn't returning calls slash emails. So what do you think about that, Jeff?
Well, first of all, Ralph looks really familiar to me. I don't know whether he looks like a movie star or maybe I've worked with him before, but hello, Ralph, you certainly look familiar to me. I'd have to know more about what he's talking about, a hot lead. So to me, a lead is somebody that I haven't put into the process yet. It sounds to me, and please correct, type in, Ralph, so that Jonathan can see it. I think you're talking about a hot prospect, somebody that's actually in the process with you. You've had a meeting or 2 meetings or 5 meetings or however many meetings, again, whether they're face-to-face or video or whatever, and then they go dark on you. So if that's the case, then there's a couple of things that I think are important. The first one is what I call the BNAS, which is the best next action step philosophy. And it's simply this, and Jonathan, I know you've heard me say this before. The best next action step philosophy says, you never, ever leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call right then and there. Mm-hmm. Never leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call right then and there. So Ralph, if this was a sales call and I was trying to sell Jonathan, here's what it would sound like at the end of the meeting if I was a typical salesperson, which I know you're not, or at least I hope you're not. And I know Jonathan is not.
Real quick, Jeff, he wrote, just to clarify, a prospect we have quoted.
Perfect. Got it. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. So the typical salesperson ends the meeting like this. Hey, Jonathan, you've given me a lot of great information today. I want to go back to my office, think about everything we've talked about, talk to my creative team, put together an outline of ideas on how we can fill in the blank with whatever you're going to do. In my case, get your team trained. And as soon as I've got that outline done, outline means proposal, my proposal done, I'll give you another call. We'll set up another meeting. I'll come back and show you the proposal. And that way you'll have all the information you need to make an intelligent decision whenever you're ready. How does that sound to you? And how that sounds to them, Ralph and Jonathan, it sounds great. Because what we've done is we've actually gotten them to agree to only one thing. And the one thing we got them to agree to is it's okay with Jonathan, in this case, if I go back to my office and spend a lot of time writing up a proposal, and that I can call him and see if he'll pick up the phone. He didn't say he would. And if I get him on the phone to take another appointment with me, he didn't agree to that either. He just said, it's okay if I want to go back and write the proposal and reach out to him. A better way would have been, hey, Jonathan, this was a great meeting. You've given me a lot of terrific information. Here's what I think we should do. I'd like to go back to my office, think about everything we've talked about, and I'd like to put together some ideas on paper, and I'd like to come back and show you those ideas next Tuesday at 3:00. How does that sound to you? Now, when the Jonathan in this example says Tuesday at 3:00, that's not good for me, but Wednesday at 10 would be good, and we set an appointment, that's a best next action step, and they will hopefully be there for that appointment. You've got a much greater chance of somebody being there for an appointment when you actually set one with them on their calendar and on yours than if it's just, yeah, I'll write up the proposal and I'll either email it to you or I'll call you and set up another appointment. So the best next action step philosophy dramatically cuts down the amount of times people go dark on you because you've always got that next meeting set up. It also lets you know that a prospect is interested. And Ralph and Jonathan and anybody else who's listening, I want to make sure that I'm investing my time wisely because I've got 3 kids to take care of, an ex-wife that needs to get paid every month. My dog has to go to the vet. Like you guys, I have responsibilities. So I've got to make sure I'm doing everything I possibly can to ensure I'm meeting those responsibilities. And by consistently moving the deal forward and making sure I'm working with interested parties, then I've got a much better chance of closing business. And how do I know you're interested? Here's how. You already gave me some of your valuable time, and now you've agreed to give me more of your valuable time to read my proposal with me, to go over it. By the way, I hate sending proposals without being able to talk to somebody about it. And not doing things in person, as most of us are doing these days via video, it makes it challenging. Here's a tip. If I'm going to work with Jonathan and I say, hey, Jonathan, I'm going to write a proposal for you. I'm going to send it over to you. I think the smart thing to do, and that's a phrase I use all the time, I think the smart thing to do would be for us to set up another meeting so I can review the proposal with you and answer any questions you might have. And that way, you'll have all the information you need to make an intelligent decision whenever you're ready. Now, the truth is, what I really want to do is I want to be able to talk about this proposal with you, because here's what happens, Jonathan and Ralph and everybody else. If I email you a proposal, you're going to turn to the last page first. You're not going to look at the other 12 or 13 pages in my case, where I'm talking about your situation and my assessment of it. Here's my suggestions and the outline of the agenda and my biography and all that great stuff that's come before it. You're going to go to the last page because that's where the price is. And if you just look at the number without seeing all the stuff that comes before that to show you, here's why it's going to be worth the number that I know you're waiting for, then you've wasted your time. One of the techniques you could use is send over your proposal without the price page and save the pricing for when you actually have that appointment. So getting that best next action step before you get off the phone with somebody or before you leave a meeting with somebody almost guarantees that you won't get ghosted. Now, when somebody actually has ghosted you, they've gone dark on you, I have a couple of techniques. One is to either call them and leave a voicemail if you don't get through to them. Obviously, if you get through to them, you're going to try to set up another appointment. But if you don't, either leave a voicemail or you send an email. And if it's an email, by the way, a voicemail would be the same message. But in an email, your subject line is going to be all in caps. And I know that means you're yelling, but all in caps. Should I close the file? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Exactly like that. All caps. Should I close the file? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And then the body of the email is going to be something like this. Hey, Ralph, you and I met on, May 17th. You seem really interested in our solution to your blah, blah, blah challenge. I sent you a proposal. You seem very interested in that. And now I've called and left several messages and sent you several emails, but I haven't heard back from you. What I want you to know is that I'm an incredibly persistent salesperson, and I'm going to keep on following up with you until you tell me not to. However, I don't want to be a pest. If you're potentially interested in moving forward, I think the smart thing to do would be for us to get together and talk about it some more so I could answer any questions, and we'll see where it goes. But if you're not interested, simply reply to this email or call me back if you're leaving a voice, call me back and just say, please close the file, and I will never darken your door again. So, should I close the file? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Now, here's the thing about this technique. You've got to be willing to get a phone call or an email back that says, yes, please close the file. We're no longer interested. But that's actually a good thing. No is my second favorite word. I love yes, but no is almost the same. Everything else sucks. Because Ralph and Jonathan and anybody else who's listening, if you're anything like me, when you've delivered a proposal and somebody's gone dark on you, the thought in my head is, well, of course, they're eventually going to come to the right decision, which is to choose to do business with me because I'm freaking amazing at what I do. And if you're thinking that, you're probably fooling yourself. But the more likely response that I get from that email, or the people I teach get from that email is, no, don't close the file. We're still interested. We just got busy with, and they fill in the blank with whatever they're busy with. So that technique helps to re-engage with people. And here's one more that you can use. And I actually learned this at the company that I used to work for before I opened up my own firm. It's called the Dear Mary call. On this one, you've got to put your ego aside and you have a manager make a call for you. So if Jonathan was my sales rep, Ralph, and I was trying to sell, Jonathan was trying to sell to you, Ralph. And Jonathan, my sales rep, comes to me and says, Ralph seemed really interested. I don't know what happened. He's gone completely dark on me. As Jonathan's manager, I'm going to call you and either get you on the phone or leave you a message that's going to sound like this. Hey, Ralph, my name is Jeff Goldberg. I'm with XYZ Company, and I know you were speaking with my sales rep, Jonathan Otero. I'm his sales manager. I want you to know that Jonathan told me he had been working with you. He was very interested in doing business with you, and you seem to be interested in doing business with him. But he told me he's left you several voicemails and sent several emails, and you haven't responded. I'm calling or emailing because I want you to know that as a sales manager, I take 100% responsibility for everything that each of my salespeople do. And apparently, Jonathan has done something to offend you, which is why you're not calling him back or returning his emails. I'd appreciate it if you personally, if you would give me a quick call back at, and I'll leave you my phone, at 516-608-4136, just so that you can tell me what Jonathan did wrong so that I can apologize to you and make sure that nothing like this happens again. I would greatly appreciate it. Sincerely, Jeff Goldberg, sales manager, sales director, whatever my title is. Now, here's the great thing about this technique. Somewhere between 90 and 95% of the time, the sales manager will get a call back or an email saying, no, Jonathan didn't do anything wrong. We love Jonathan. He's the greatest in the world. We just got busy with blah, blah, blah. But now, as Jonathan's sales manager, I've re-engaged you, and I can now suggest, hey, why don't you and Jonathan and I have a meeting, next Tuesday at 3:00 so we can talk about the proposal. So those are two techniques. One, somebody has gone dark, and one to help them try to avoid going dark on you.
Wow. Jeff, look, I just want to thank you because, I'm sure Ralph got a lot out of that. I got a lot out of that. I mean, I need it. I'm in sales, right? I'm a sales guy. And so, thank you so much for all the sales guys and sales girls that are out there, gals that are out there watching, that are, you're adding so much value. Sales is a great career, but as you and I both know, it's one of the toughest things that you can do. Sales is necessary for every single organization. Doesn't matter what type of industry you're in, you need salespeople. And you've added so much value to my audience, to the people that we're both mutually connected to people who we don't even know that are watching this thing or are gonna watch it later on today. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of that. You've taken so much and you've added so much value, not only to people who are watching, but myself as well. So I just wanted to say thank you. I'm grateful that we started this podcast with you as the guest. And I just wanted to, let you guys know, if you guys wanted to connect with Jeff, you can do so obviously on LinkedIn, Jeff Goldberg, as you can see his name there. You can also go to his website, jgsalespro.com. That's jgsalespro.com. Check him out, research him. If you guys are VP of sales and you want to hire Jeff for your sales coaching and for your organization and your team, reach out to him there, connect with him there, or you could reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with Jeff. And Jeff, you mentioned earlier about your Facebook group. You want to maybe just say, how can we get to that group? Is there a link or how can we get there?
It's called The Sales Pro Network, 4 words, The Sales Pro Network. If you're on Facebook, just look for that. And I'm the admin. So, if anybody's looking to join, I do take a quick look at your profile to make sure you're not some maniac. But although a lot of salespeople are maniacs, but yeah, I'll let you in, and it's a great place to be. And Jonathan, you said something a moment ago, which I think is perfect. You said sales is a great career. And I want to share before we get off something that my stepfather taught me about selling, because he used those words. And this was a million years ago. He was a career salesperson. He said to me when I was quite young, he said, Jeffrey, sales is a great career. And here's why. Every single day you get to wake up, look yourself in the mirror and give yourself a raise every day. And then all you have to do is go out and earn it. And that's held me strong for almost 48 years now. Every day I get to wake up and look myself in the mirror and go, today's the day. I'm going to go out and earn it. I deserve it. And really, as you know, Jonathan, it's just a matter of doing the work, especially the work that we don't want to do, like putting out a podcast like this to develop your brand, reaching out to people via the phone or any other way, doing the prospecting. But I love sales because a college dropout like me, I've got a high IQ, but not a great college education, can make a very substantial living in sales. And that's the great thing about it. Everybody listening can make a ton of money in sales. It's almost limitless if you're just willing to do the work.
Awesome stuff. Well, Jeff, listen, I just want to say thank you again very much. I really appreciate it. You've added a ton of value. You filled a necessary gap in this show to start off. So thank you so much for it. And like I said, guys, if you want to get in touch with Jeff, reach out to me, connect with Jeff on LinkedIn, go to his website, and he can give you more and more. I could talk to you all day long, but I know we don't have the time for all of that. So thank you so much, sir. Again, I'm grateful for you doing this.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, guys. All right. Take care. See you, everyone. Have a great day. Go sell something today.